It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And now he'll pay for it.
2 in the morning, and I'm sitting in my basement studio surrounded by thousands of dollars worth of photography equipment, staring at an empty spot on my shelf where my most expensive camera should be. The irony isn't lost on me. I can capture everyone else's life in perfect detail, but somehow miss the slow-motion train wreck of my own marriage. My name's Eddie Morrison, and I'm a professional photographer in Salem, Massachusetts. Not the witch trial Salem, that's tourist nonsense. The real Salem, where people have real problems, like wives who think borrowing means stealing and husbands who are apparently too stupid to notice. The text message on Angela's phone glows accusingly in the dim light of my studio. Don't be mad, I lent your camera to my ex for his event. I didn't even know she remembered Calvin's name. Heck, I didn't know she still had his number. But there it is, sent 3 days ago, right around the time my Canon 5D Mark IV mysteriously vanished from my locked equipment case. Angela's upstairs, sleeping the sleep of the righteously deceptive, probably dreaming about whatever lie she'll tell me tomorrow. Meanwhile, I'm down here, having what my therapist would call an awakening moment. What I call it isn't printable. The thing about being a photographer is that you develop an eye for details other people miss. The way someone's shoulders tense when they're lying, how their eyes shift left when they're accessing their creative memory instead of their factual one. The subtle changes in routine that signal something's wrong. Angela's been showering twice a day for 3 months. She's been going to yoga class every Thursday evening, but her yoga mat hasn't moved from the hall closet since Christmas. She's been getting texts at weird hours and claiming they're from her sister Maya, but Maya lives in Seattle and wouldn't be texting anyone at midnight Eastern time. I grab my laptop and open the insurance app for my professional equipment. Every piece of gear I own has GPS tracking. Learned that lesson the hard way after getting robbed at a wedding gig 2 years ago. The little blinking dot showing my camera's location makes my stomach drop into my boots. Goldstein's Pawn and Jewelry, downtown on Federal Street. The kind of place where stolen goods go to die and desperate people go to get ripped off. But here's the beautiful part. I set up automatic police notifications if any of my gear shows up in a pawn shop. It's a service most photographers don't know exists, but when you've invested $40,000 in equipment, you learn these things. My phone buzzes. Text from the Salem PD automated system. Registered item detected at Goldstein's Pawn, 247 Federal Street. Case number 2024 to 3,847 inches. I'm getting dressed before the notification sound stops playing. The drive downtown takes 12 minutes at this hour. Goldstein's is closed, obviously, but there's a light on in the back office. I park across the street and call the number from the police notification. Salem PD, Officer Martinez. This is Eddie Morrison. I just got an automated notification that my stolen camera showed up at a pawn shop. Case number 2024 to 3,847 inches. Hold on, Mr. Morrison. I hear typing. Yeah, we got the alert too. Units en route. You want to meet them there? Already here. Stay in your vehicle, sir. We'll handle this. 2 patrol cars arrive within minutes, followed by an unmarked sedan. The detective who gets out of the sedan is a woman about my age, with the kind of tired eyes that suggest she's seen this exact scenario play out 100 times before. She taps on my window. I roll it down. Eddie Morrison? That's me. Detective Sarah Marston. This your camera? She holds up an evidence bag containing my Canon. Serial numbers in the police report I filed yesterday, along with about 6 other pieces of equipment. Other pieces? My wife's ex-boyfriend is apparently branching out into grand larceny. The camera's worth $4,000. The lens attached to it is worth another $2,000. Detective Marston's eyebrows rise slightly. Ex-boyfriend? Current boyfriend, technically. I'm just slow on the uptake. She almost smiles at that. Want to tell me what happened? I give her the abbreviated version while we watch her colleagues talk to Mr. Goldstein through his shop window. The old man keeps shaking his head and pointing toward the back room. So your wife gave your equipment to her boyfriend, who tried to pawn it? That's my working theory. And you didn't know about the boyfriend? I suspected. The camera thing confirmed it. Detective Marston nods like this makes perfect sense to her, which I suppose it does. Cheating spouses and stolen property probably go together like peanut butter and jelly in her line of work. We'll need you to come in and give a formal statement. But I can tell you right now, if this Calvin character tried to pawn stolen goods, he's looking at receiving stolen property at minimum, possibly grand larceny, if we can prove he took it directly. What's the difference? About 3 years in prison. The front door of the pawn shop opens, and Mr. Goldstein emerges, followed by two officers and a young guy in handcuffs. Even in the dim streetlight, I recognize Calvin Reeves. He's exactly what you'd expect from a guy who sleeps with other men's wives, 6 feet tall, gym-sculpted, and wearing a tank top in 40-degree weather to show off his arms. He sees me sitting in my car, and his face goes through several interesting expressions: surprise, anger, fear, and finally resignation. It's like watching someone's entire worldview collapse in real time. Calvin tries to say something to the officers, but they're not interested in conversation. They put him in the back of a patrol car with the efficient boredom of people who do this every night. Detective Marston walks over to talk to her colleagues, then returns to my window. Goldstein says your boy Calvin came in around 9 p.m. trying to sell the camera and 2 lenses. When Goldstein asked for ID and proof of ownership, Calvin got aggressive, started threatening him. Threatening him how? Said he'd come back with friends if the old man didn't buy the stuff. No questions asked. Goldstein stalled him, told him to come back tomorrow, then called us. Smart man. Calvin came back an hour ago. Goldstein let him in, kept him talking until we arrived. Guy's got brass, I'll give him that. I watched the patrol car with Calvin in it pull away from the curb. So what happens now? Now you come downtown and we sort this mess out. Fair warning, though, this is going to get ugly. Domestic situations always do. She's not wrong about that. My phone starts ringing before I even get my car started. Angela's ringtone. I let it go to voicemail, then another call immediately, and another. By the time I reach the police station, she's called 8 times. The 9th call comes while I'm sitting in Detective Marston's office filling out paperwork. This time I answer. Eddie, thank God, you have to help Calvin. They're arresting him for something he didn't do. He tried to pawn my camera, Angela. My $4,000 camera that he stole from my studio. He didn't steal it. I gave it to him. You gave him my camera, without asking me, to pawn for pills money. It wasn't for pills. He needed money for his rent. So you decide to steal from your husband to help your boyfriend pay his bills. The silence on the other end of the line stretches long enough that Detective Marston looks up from her computer. Eddie, just don't. Deal with your boyfriend's legal problems yourself. I'm done. I hang up and turn the phone off. Detective Marston finishes typing and looks at me over her reading glasses. Feel better? Ask me tomorrow. The next morning, Angela's gone when I wake up. Her car's not in the driveway and there's no note. Just an empty coffee cup in the sink and the lingering smell of her perfume. The expensive stuff she only wears when she's trying to manipulate someone. I make my own coffee and sit at the kitchen table, looking at the stack of mail that's been accumulating for the past week. Bills, mostly. Photography equipment insurance, mortgage, utilities, the normal debris of a normal life that's quietly falling apart. My phone buzzes with a text from my friend Ricky. Heard Angela's boyfriend got arrested. You okay? Word travels fast in Salem. It's not really a small town, 60,000 people. But the photography community is tight, and news like this spreads like wildfire. By now, half the wedding photographers in Essex County probably know that Eddie Morrison's wife is cheating on him with some gym rat who steals cameras. I text back, fine, coffee later? Murphy's at noon? Murphy's Tavern is the kind of place where photographers, journalists, and other creative types go to drink away their professional disappointments. It's dark, cheap, and nobody asks questions about why you're drinking at noon on a Wednesday. I spend the morning in my studio, going through my equipment inventory. Besides the camera Calvin tried to pawn, I'm missing a 70 to 200 mm lens, a wireless flash trigger, and a set of memory cards. Total value, around $8,000. The really infuriating part isn't the money. My insurance will cover most of it. It's the violation. These aren't just tools to me. They're how I make my living. It's like someone stealing a surgeon's scalpels or a carpenter's hammer. I'm cataloging serial numbers. When I hear Angela's car in the driveway, she comes through the front door like a hurricane, all righteous indignation and wounded pride. Eddie, we need to talk. No, we don't. She follows me down to the studio anyway. Calvin didn't steal your camera. I gave it to him. Without asking me. It was just for one night. He had a wedding to shoot, and his camera broke. So you decided to lend him $8,000 worth of my equipment without mentioning it. I was going to tell you. When? After he pawned it. Angela sits down on my editing stool, trying to look vulnerable and misunderstood. It's a performance I've seen before, usually right before she asks for something expensive. Calvin's going through a hard time. He lost his job at the gym, and photography is all he has left. Calvin lost his job because he was selling steroids to high school kids. Don't try to make him sound like a victim. Her face flushes. How do you know that? Because I'm not an idiot, Angela. Because I pay attention to things. Because when someone's boyfriend suddenly has a lot of cash and then suddenly doesn't, there's usually a reason. He's not my boyfriend. Right. He's just the guy you've been texting at midnight. The guy you visit every Thursday during your imaginary yoga class. The guy you gave my camera to without asking. She stares at me for a long moment, and I can see her calculating, trying to figure out how much I know and how much I'm guessing. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The only question is how long it's been going on. Eddie, 3 months? 6 months? Since Christmas? Her silence is answer enough. I grab my jacket and head for the stairs. I'm going out. When I get back, I want you gone. You can't kick me out. This is my house too. Actually, it's my house. My name's on the deed. Your name's on the mortgage because I was stupid enough to trust you. But that doesn't give you ownership rights. She follows me up the stairs, her voice getting higher and more desperate. You can't do this. I have nowhere to go. Try Calvin's place. He's in jail because of you. He's in jail because he tried to fence stolen property. That's on him, not me. I'm at the front door when she grabs my arm. Eddie, please. Can't we work this out? For just a second, I almost feel sorry for her. She looks genuinely scared, genuinely lost. Then I remember the text messages, the lies, the $8,000 worth of my equipment that's now sitting in a police evidence locker. We could have worked it out if you'd been honest with me, but you weren't. You chose Calvin over me, and now you get to live with that choice. Murphy's Tavern is exactly what I need. Dark, quiet, and full of people who mind their own business. Ricky's already there when I arrive, sitting at our usual table in the back corner with 2 pints of Guinness. You look like heck, he says by way of greeting. Feel worse. Ricky's been my friend since college, back when we were both idealistic journalism majors who thought we were going to change the world with our cameras. He ended up covering high school sports for the Salem Gazette. I ended up taking wedding photos. Neither of us changed the world, but we learned to drink good beer and appreciate small victories. So, what's the story with Angela and this Calvin guy? I give him the full version this time, starting with the missing camera and ending with this morning's confrontation. Ricky listens without interrupting, which is one of the things I've always liked about him. How long do you think it's been going on? He asks when I finish. Months, maybe since last fall. And you had no idea? I suspected something was off, but I didn't want to believe it. You know how it is? You see what you want to see. Ricky nods. His own marriage ended badly 5 years ago under similar circumstances. What are you going to do? Divorce her? Get my equipment back? Try to salvage what's left of my reputation? Your reputation's fine, Eddie. Everyone knows Angela's been acting strange lately. Everyone? Come on. She's been hitting on guys at every photography event for the past 6 months. Last month at the wedding expo, she cornered 3 different vendors asking about collaboration opportunities. It was embarrassing. This is news to me. Why didn't anyone tell me? What were we supposed to say? Hey, Eddie, your wife's flirting with every guy in the room? That's not a conversation anyone wants to have. He's right, but it still stings. All those events where I thought Angela was just being friendly and networking, she was actually shopping for my replacement. The worst part is Calvin. I mean, if you're going to cheat, at least cheat with someone who's not a complete loser. You know him? Know of him. He used to work at that CrossFit place on Highland Avenue, got fired for dealing steroids. Now he's trying to break into wedding photography with my equipment. Ironic. That's one word for it. We drink in comfortable silence for a while, watching the lunch crowd filter in. Office workers, construction guys, a few other photographers I recognize but don't know well enough to talk to. My phone buzzes with a text from Detective Marston. Calvin's been charged with receiving stolen property and attempted fraud. Arraignment tomorrow at 9 a.m. You don't need to be there, but you can if you want. I show the text to Ricky. Think I should go? Absolutely. You want to see this guy's face when he realizes how much trouble he's in. Angela will probably be there. Even better. Let her see what happens to people who steal from you. By the time I get home, Angela's packed a suitcase and loaded it into her car. She's standing in the kitchen looking lost and angry, like a teenager who's been grounded for something she doesn't think is her fault. I'm staying at Maya's, she says without looking at me. Good. This isn't over, Eddie. We're married, we have history. We have a mortgage and a joint checking account. That's not the same thing as history. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. People make mistakes. You made choices. There's a difference. She picks up her purse and heads for the door, then turns back. What about Calvin? What about him? Are you going to press charges? I already pressed charges. He stole my equipment and tried to sell it. That's a felony. He could go to prison. He should have thought about that before he decided to become a thief. Eddie, please. I'm begging you. And there it is, the moment I've been waiting for without realizing it. Angela Reeves Morrison, the woman who's been lying to me for months, who gave away my equipment without asking, who chose another man over her husband, is finally begging me for something. It should feel satisfying. Instead, it just makes me tired. Go stay at Maya's, I tell her. Figure out what you want to do with your life, but don't ask me to clean up the mess you made. She leaves without another word. I watch her car disappear down the street, then go inside and pour myself a drink. Tomorrow, I'll go to Calvin's arraignment and watch him face the consequences of his choices. Tonight, I'm going to sit in my studio and plan what comes next, because this is just the beginning. Calvin's arraignment is everything I hoped it would be and more. He shows up in an orange jumpsuit, flanked by a public defender who looks like she'd rather be anywhere else. His usual swagger is completely gone, replaced by the hollow-eyed look of someone who spent the night in county lockup. Angela sits in the gallery, 3 rows behind me. I can feel her staring at the back of my head, but I don't turn around. This isn't about her anymore. Judge Patricia Coleman reads the charges in a voice that could cut glass. Receiving stolen property in the first degree, attempted fraud, and criminal threatening. The threatening charge is new. Apparently, Calvin's conversation with Mr. Goldstein was more aggressive than I initially heard. Calvin's lawyer enters a plea of not guilty, which is legally smart but factually ridiculous. The evidence against him is overwhelming. Security footage from the pawn shop, testimony from Mr. Goldstein, and my equipment found in his possession with the serial numbers filed off. That last detail is what pushes this from a misdemeanor to a felony. Filing off serial numbers shows intent to permanently deprive the owner of their property. In Massachusetts, that's grand larceny, and it carries a mandatory minimum sentence. The judge sets bail at $50,000. Calvin's face goes white. His lawyer whispers something in his ear, and he nods miserably. Your Honor, the public defender says, my client requests a payment plan for bail. Judge Coleman looks at her like she just asked to pay court costs in Monopoly money. This is not a layaway program, counselor. Bail is $50,000, cash or bond. Next case. Calvin is led back to the holding cell, and that's that. The whole proceeding takes less than 10 minutes. Outside the courthouse, Angela catches up with me in the parking lot. Are you happy now? She demands. Getting there. Calvin doesn't have $50,000. Then he should have thought about that before he decided to steal from me. Eddie, please. I'll pay you back for the equipment. I'll do whatever you want. Just drop the charges. I can't drop the charges even if I wanted to. The state is prosecuting him, not me. But if you told them you didn't want to press charges, Angela, he filed the serial numbers off my equipment. That's not a mistake or a misunderstanding. That's premeditated theft with intent to sell. He's going to prison whether I cooperate or not. She starts crying, which might have worked on me 6 months ago. Now it just seems like another performance. This is all my fault, she sobs. Yes, it is. I never meant for this to happen. You gave $8,000 worth of my equipment to your boyfriend. What did you think was going to happen? I thought he'd give it back. After he pawned it, she doesn't have an answer for that. I get in my car and drive home, leaving her standing in the courthouse parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I see her on her phone, probably calling Maya or one of her other friends to come rescue her. Back at the house, I spend the afternoon going through our joint finances. It's worse than I thought. Angela has been withdrawing cash regularly for months. Never enough to trigger account alerts, but it adds up. $3,000 since Christmas, all of it taken out in small amounts from ATMs near Calvin's apartment. I print out the bank statements and add them to the growing file folder labeled Divorce. My lawyer is going to have a field day with this. The doorbell rings around 4 o'clock. Through the peephole, I see Maya standing on my front porch looking uncomfortable. Angela's sister is 5 years younger and infinitely more sensible, which makes this conversation particularly awkward. Hi, Eddie. Maya, let me guess. Angela sent you? She's really upset. I imagine she is. Maya shifts from foot to foot, clearly rehearsing what she's going to say. Look, I know what she did was wrong, but Calvin's not a bad guy. He just made some poor choices. Poor choices like stealing my equipment and trying to sell it. He was desperate. He lost his job, and he's behind on rent. Angela was just trying to help him with my money and my equipment. She knows it was wrong. She wants to make it right. I invite Maya inside because this conversation is going to take a while and I don't want the neighbors listening in. How exactly does Angela plan to make this right? I ask once we're sitting in the living room. She'll pay you back for everything, the full replacement value. With what money? She hasn't worked in 2 years. She's getting a job. She already has some interviews lined up. Good for her. She can use her first paycheck to hire a lawyer. Maya looks genuinely surprised. You're really going to divorce her? Maya, your sister has been having an affair for months. She stole from me to support another man. What exactly did you think was going to happen? I thought you'd work it out. You guys have been together for 8 years. 8 years of marriage, 6 months of her cheating. The math doesn't work out in her favor. Maya tries a different approach. What about Calvin? He could go to prison. He should go to prison. He's a thief. Angela says he's not like that normally. He's just been under a lot of pressure. Everyone's under pressure, Maya. Most people don't deal with it by committing felonies. We talk for another 20 minutes, but it's clear we're not going to reach any kind of understanding. Maya thinks this is all a big misunderstanding that can be solved with apologies and good intentions. I think it's a crime that should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. After Maya leaves, I call Detective Marston. Any word on when I'll get my equipment back? After the trial, assuming Calvin's convicted, could be 6 months, could be a year. And if he pleads guilty? Then a lot sooner. Why? Just wondering. Mr. Morrison, can I give you some advice? Sure. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of domestic situations go sideways. You're handling this better than most, but don't let it consume you. Get your divorce, get your equipment back, and move on with your life. I plan to. Good. Because revenge is a luxury most people can't afford. After I hang up, I sit in my studio looking at the empty spaces where my missing equipment should be. Detective Marston is right. Revenge is expensive, but some things are worth the cost. I open my laptop and start researching Calvin Reeves. Social media profiles, employment history, court records. It doesn't take long to build a complete picture of Angela's boyfriend. 28 years old, originally from Worcester, dropped out of UMass after 2 semesters, worked a series of dead-end jobs before landing at CrossFit Salem, where he lasted 18 months before getting fired for selling steroids to clients. No permanent address. He's been couch surfing and staying in cheap motels for the past 3 months. His Instagram account is a masterpiece of delusion. Hundreds of photos of him working out, posing with expensive cars that clearly aren't his, and promoting his photography business with pictures that are obviously stolen from other photographers' websites. The photography angle is particularly galling. Calvin has been advertising wedding photography services using my work as examples. He's literally been trying to book clients by showing them pictures I took. I screenshot everything and add it to my divorce file. Then I do something that probably isn't smart, but feels absolutely necessary. I create a fake Instagram account and start following all of Calvin's contacts, his friends, his former coworkers, his potential photography clients. Within an hour, I have access to a network of people who think Calvin Reeves is a legitimate businessman. Tomorrow, they're going to learn otherwise. But first, I need to have another conversation with Angela. Angela agrees to meet me at Murphy's Tavern, neutral ground where we can talk without screaming at each other. She shows up 20 minutes late, looking like she hasn't slept in days. Good. You look tired, I say when she sits down. I wonder why. The waitress comes over and Angela orders a white wine. I stick with coffee. This conversation requires clarity, not liquid courage. Maya says you want to make things right, I begin. I do, Eddie. I'm so sorry about everything. I know I screwed up. Which part are you sorry about? The affair, the stealing, or getting caught? She flinches. All of it. I never meant for things to go this far. How far did you mean for them to go? I don't know. It just happened. Affairs don't just happen, Angela. They're a series of choices. You chose to text Calvin. You chose to meet him. You chose to sleep with him. You chose to give him my equipment. I know, I made bad choices. You made criminal choices. There's a difference. Her wine arrives and she takes a large gulp before continuing. What do you want from me, Eddie? I said I was sorry. I said I'd pay you back. I want you to understand something. This isn't just about the money or the equipment. It's about respect. You didn't respect me enough to be honest. You didn't respect our marriage enough to end it before starting something else. And you didn't respect my work enough to ask before giving away my tools. I get it. I disrespected you. What do you want me to do about it? I want you to face the consequences of your actions, just like Calvin is doing. Calvin doesn't deserve to go to prison. Calvin is a 30-year-old man who stole $8,000 worth of equipment and tried to sell it. He absolutely deserves to go to prison. Angela starts crying again, but this time it seems genuine rather than manipulative. I love him, Eddie. Then you should have divorced me before acting on it. I was scared. Of what? Of being alone, of starting over, of admitting I made a mistake marrying you. That last part stings more than I expected. So you decided to hedge your bets. Keep the husband for security while testing out the boyfriend for excitement. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. You wanted to have it both ways, and when that didn't work out, you decided to steal from me to support him. We sit in silence for a few minutes. The lunch crowd is starting to filter in, and I recognize several people from the local photography community. Word about Angela and Calvin has definitely spread. What happens now? She asks finally. Now you hire a lawyer and file for divorce. I'm not going to make it difficult for you, but I'm not going to make it easy either. What does that mean? It means you get half the house equity and half the savings account. You don't get alimony and you don't get any of my business equipment or client list. That seems fair. It's more than fair. If I pushed for it, I could probably get adultery and theft factored into the settlement. Are you going to? That depends on how cooperative you are. She nods miserably. What about Calvin? What about him? Are you going to ask the prosecutor to go easy on him? Angela, for the last time, Calvin committed a felony. He's going to face the consequences of that whether I ask for leniency or not. But if you testified on his behalf, I'm not going to perjure myself to help the man who stole from me. So you're just going to let him go to prison? I'm going to let the justice system work the way it's supposed to work. Angela finishes her wine and signals for another. I never thought you could be this cold. I'm not being cold, I'm being rational. You and Calvin made your choices, and now you get to live with the results. This isn't the man I married. The man you married was naive enough to trust you. Consider this a learning experience. She starts to say something else, but her phone buzzes with a text message. She reads it, and her face goes pale. What is it? Calvin's lawyer. He wants to meet with me tomorrow. About what? He thinks I should testify at Calvin's trial. Say that I gave him permission to take your equipment. Did you give him permission? I gave him the equipment. Isn't that the same thing? Angela, you didn't own the equipment. You can't give permission for someone to take something that doesn't belong to you. But if I testified that I told him it was okay, then you'd be admitting to conspiracy to commit theft, which is also a felony. Her second wine arrives, and she drains half of it in one gulp. So what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to hire your own lawyer and stop taking legal advice from Calvin's public defender. I can't afford a lawyer. Then you better hope the public defender's office has someone available, because if you testify the way Calvin wants you to, you're going to need representation too. I leave her at the table and drive home. The house feels different now, quieter but also more peaceful. For the first time in months, I'm not wondering what Angela is really doing or who she's texting. I spend the evening in my studio, editing photos from a wedding I shot last weekend. It's mindless work that lets me think about what comes next. The divorce will be straightforward. Massachusetts is a no-fault state, which means adultery doesn't technically matter, but it can influence property division if there's evidence of financial misconduct. The $3,000 Angela gave to Calvin definitely qualifies. Calvin's criminal case is more complicated. His lawyer will probably try to negotiate a plea deal, especially if Calvin can't make bail. 6 months in county jail plus restitution would be typical for a first-time offender. But Calvin isn't really a first-time offender. The steroid dealing at the gym never resulted in charges, but it establishes a pattern of illegal behavior. And the serial number filing shows premeditation, which judges don't like. My phone rings around 9 o'clock. Unknown number. Eddie Morrison. Mr. Morrison, this is Jennifer Walsh from the Public Defender's Office. I represent Calvin Reeves. Okay. I understand you're the victim in this case. That's right. I was hoping we could discuss a possible resolution that would benefit everyone involved. I'm listening. My client is willing to plead guilty to a reduced charge in exchange for restitution and community service. No jail time. What's the reduced charge? Misdemeanor theft. Your client committed felony theft and attempted fraud. He filed off serial numbers with the intent to permanently deprive me of my property. That's not a misdemeanor. Mr. Morrison, Calvin is a young man who made a poor decision. He has no prior convictions, and he's willing to make full restitution. With what money? He's unemployed and living in his car. He has family who are willing to help. His family wasn't willing to help with bail. There's a pause. Mr. Morrison, I have to ask, are you opposed to any kind of plea agreement? I'm opposed to letting a thief walk away with a slap on the wrist, even if it means you get your equipment back sooner. Miss Walsh, I have insurance. I'll get my equipment replaced whether Calvin goes to prison or not. This isn't about money anymore. Then what is it about? It's about consequences. Your client didn't just steal from me. He stole from me to support an affair with my wife. He used my equipment to try to start a competing photography business. He threatened an elderly pawn shop owner when he wouldn't buy stolen goods. This isn't a young man who made one poor decision. This is a pattern of criminal behavior. I understand you're angry. I'm not angry, Miss Walsh. I'm determined. Your client is going to face the full consequences of his actions. Mr. Morrison, please reconsider. Calvin could get 3 to 5 years if he's convicted on all charges. Then he better hope he has a good lawyer. I hang up and turn off my phone. Tomorrow, I'm going to start making some calls of my own. The next morning brings an unexpected visitor. I'm having coffee in my kitchen when I see Calvin walking up my front steps. He's out of jail, which means someone posted his bail, and he's wearing the kind of cheap suit that screams court appearance. I don't answer the door when he knocks. Instead, I call emergency. Salem Police. This is Eddie Morrison at 47 Maple Street. The man who stole my equipment and was arrested 3 days ago is at my front door. I have a restraining order. We'll send a unit right away, sir. I don't actually have a restraining order, but Calvin doesn't know that. And showing up at the victim's house while facing felony charges is the kind of stupid decision that judges remember during sentencing. Calvin knocks for another minute, then walks around to the backyard. I watch him through my studio window as he tries the back door, peers through windows, and generally acts like someone casing a house for burglary. The police arrive in less than 5 minutes. 2 patrol cars, 4 officers. Calvin is standing in my backyard looking through my studio window when they find him. I watch from the kitchen as they handcuff him and put him back in a patrol car. One of the officers comes to my front door. Mr. Morrison, I'm Officer Rodriguez. We arrested Calvin Reeves for violating the terms of his bail. What terms? No contact with victims or witnesses. Showing up at your house definitely qualifies. What happens now? Now he goes back to jail, and his bail gets revoked. He'll stay locked up until trial. How long will that take? Couple months, probably. His lawyer will try to get the bail reinstated, but judges don't like it when defendants harass victims. After the police leave, I call Detective Marston. I heard about Calvin's little visit, she says before I can explain why I'm calling. Word travels fast. Stupid criminals make our job easier. What did he want? No idea, I didn't talk to him. Smart. His lawyer's probably going to claim he was just trying to apologize, but showing up at your house was incredibly dumb. How dumb? Dumb enough to add witness intimidation to his charges. That's another felony, and it carries a mandatory minimum sentence. Meaning Calvin Reeves is going to prison no matter what kind of plea deal his lawyer tries to negotiate. That evening, Angela calls me from Maya's house. I heard what happened with Calvin. Did you know he was coming here? No. I told him to stay away from you. Apparently, he doesn't listen very well. Eddie, he's scared. He doesn't understand how serious this is. Then he's stupider than I thought. His family posted bail, and now they're out $50,000. They should have spent that money on a better lawyer. Can't you just talk to the prosecutor? Tell them you don't want to press charges? Angela, we've been through this. I can't drop charges that the state is prosecuting. And even if I could, Calvin just added witness intimidation to his list of crimes. What does that mean? It means he's looking at 5 to 10 years instead of 3 to 5. She starts crying again. This is all my fault. Yes, it is. What can I do to fix it? Nothing. It's too late to fix anything. Eddie, please. I'm begging you. Calvin doesn't deserve this. Calvin is a 30-year-old man who made a series of criminal choices. He deserves exactly what he's going to get. What about me? What am I supposed to do? You're supposed to move on with your life. Get a job, find an apartment, file for divorce. Like a normal adult. I can't afford an apartment. Then get a roommate or move back in with your parents. I don't care what you do, but you can't stay married to me. What if I don't want a divorce? Then you're going to be very disappointed. I hang up and pour myself a drink. Outside, it's starting to rain. The kind of cold, steady drizzle that makes everything look gray and depressing. My phone buzzes with a text from Ricky. Heard Calvin got arrested again. You okay? Fine, he's an idiot. Want to grab a drink, celebrate his stupidity? Can't. Meeting with my lawyer tomorrow morning. Divorce papers? Among other things. The next morning, my lawyer's office feels like a sanctuary. Patricia Chen is everything Angela isn't. Smart, direct, and completely honest about what I can expect from the divorce proceedings. The adultery doesn't matter legally, she explains, but the financial misconduct does. $3,000 in unauthorized withdrawals plus the theft of your equipment gives us leverage in property division. What kind of leverage? Full ownership of the house, your business equipment, and your client list. She gets half the savings account and half your retirement fund, minus the money she gave to Calvin. That seems fair. It's more than fair. In a contested divorce, you might get 60-40 in your favor. This way you get 70-30 and avoid a trial. Will she agree to it? She will if she's smart. If she fights it, we'll subpoena her bank records and phone records. Her affair becomes part of the public record, and her employment prospects suffer accordingly. And Calvin's not your problem anymore. His criminal case is separate from your divorce. His lawyer called me about a plea deal. What did you tell them? That I wasn't interested. Patricia nods approvingly. Good. Plea deals are between the prosecutor and the defendant. Victims don't get a vote. But I could ask the prosecutor to go easy on him. You could, but why would you want to? I wouldn't. I'm just trying to understand the process. The process is simple. Calvin committed multiple felonies. He's going to face the consequences. Your only job is to show up and testify when they ask you to. I leave Patricia's office feeling better than I have in weeks. For the first time since this whole mess started, I have a clear plan and realistic expectations. The divorce will take 3 months. Calvin's trial will take longer, but that's not my problem. My insurance company has already approved replacement of my stolen equipment, so I can get back to work immediately. That afternoon, I drive to the camera store and spend 2 hours replacing everything Calvin stole. New camera body, new lenses, new accessories. The insurance covers most of it, and the rest comes out of money Angela won't be getting in the divorce settlement. On the way home, I stop at Murphy's Tavern for a celebratory drink. Ricky's there, along with 3 other photographers I know from various wedding events. Heard you're getting divorced, says Tom Bradley, a guy who shoots mostly corporate events. News travels fast. Also heard Angela's boyfriend is looking at serious prison time. That's what his lawyer tells me. Good, says Sarah Martinez, who does portraits and family photography. That guy was using your work to advertise his services. Completely unethical. You knew about that? Everyone knew about it. We were wondering when you'd figure it out. Why didn't anyone tell me? Tom shrugs. What were we supposed to say? Hey, Eddie, your wife's boyfriend is stealing your photos? That's not a conversation anyone wants to have. It's the same thing Ricky told me about Angela's flirting. Everyone knew, but nobody wanted to be the messenger. I understand their position, but it still stings to realize how obvious my situation was to everyone except me. Well, it's over now, I say. Calvin's going to prison, Angela's moving out, and I'm getting back to work. What about the equipment he stole? Insurance replaced it. I'll get the originals back after his trial, assuming they're still in working condition. And if they're not, then Calvin owes me replacement value on top of everything else. We drink and talk for another hour about business, mutual acquaintances, and upcoming wedding season. It feels good to have a normal conversation about normal topics with people who aren't trying to manipulate me or ask for favors. When I get home, there's a car I don't recognize in my driveway. An older woman gets out as I pull up, mid-50s, well-dressed, with the kind of stern expression that suggests she's not here for a social visit. Mr. Morrison, I'm Patricia Reeves, Calvin's mother. Of course she is. Mrs. Reeves. I was hoping we could talk. About what? About my son's situation. I invite her inside because this conversation is going to be interesting, and I want to hear what she has to say. Calvin is a good boy, she begins once we're sitting in my living room. He's made some mistakes, but he's not a criminal. Mrs. Reeves, your son stole $8,000 worth of my equipment and tried to sell it. That makes him a criminal by definition. He was trying to help your wife. He was trying to help himself to my property. Calvin told me your wife gave him permission to borrow your camera. My wife didn't own my camera. She couldn't give permission to borrow something that wasn't hers. Mrs. Reeves shifts uncomfortably. Surely there's some way to resolve this without sending Calvin to prison. There was. Calvin could have returned my equipment and apologized. Instead, he filed off the serial numbers and tried to sell it. He was desperate. He lost his job and he couldn't pay his rent. Mrs. Reeves, everyone faces financial difficulties at some point. Most people don't deal with them by committing felonies. What do you want from us, Mr. Morrison? Money? We'll pay you back for everything. I don't want your money. I want your son to face the consequences of his actions. He could get 10 years in prison. Then he should have thought about that before he decided to steal from me. Mrs. Reeves starts crying, and I almost feel sorry for her. She's clearly a decent woman who raised a son who turned out badly, and now she's trying to clean up his mess. Mrs. Reeves, I understand that you love your son, but Calvin is 30 years old. He's not a child who made a mistake. He's an adult who committed multiple felonies. But surely you can understand. I understand that Calvin stole from me to support an affair with my wife. I understand that he used my equipment to try to start a competing business. I understand that he threatened an elderly man when he wouldn't buy stolen goods. And I understand that he showed up at my house while facing criminal charges, which was stupid enough to add witness intimidation to his list of crimes. He just wanted to apologize. Then he should have done it through his lawyer. Mrs. Reeves wipes her eyes and tries a different approach. What if Calvin agreed to leave town? Move back to Worcester and never contact you or your wife again? Mrs. Reeves, this isn't a Western movie. You can't solve criminal charges by riding off into the sunset. But if you told the prosecutor you didn't want to pursue the case, the state is prosecuting your son, not me. Even if I asked them to drop the charges, which I won't, they probably wouldn't listen. Why won't you ask them? Because your son is a thief who deserves to go to prison. She stares at me for a long moment, and I can see her trying to process the fact that I'm not going to help her. You're a very cold man, Mr. Morrison. I'm a realistic man, Mrs. Reeves. Your son made his choices, and now he gets to live with the consequences. She leaves without another word. Through my front window, I watch her sit in her car for several minutes, probably crying. Then she drives away. I pour myself another drink and sit in my studio looking at my new equipment. Tomorrow, I have a wedding to shoot in Newburyport. Next week, I have engagement photos and a corporate headshot session. Life goes on. Calvin Reeves is going to prison. Angela is going to be my ex-wife. And I'm going to rebuild my business and my reputation. Sometimes justice is exactly as simple as it appears. 3 months later, Calvin's trial begins on a Tuesday morning in Salem Superior Court. I arrive early and take a seat in the gallery, watching as the courtroom fills with lawyers, court officers, and a handful of spectators. Calvin looks terrible. 3 months in county jail have not been kind to him. He's lost weight, his skin is pale, and he has the hollow-eyed look of someone who's finally understanding the seriousness of his situation. Angela sits in the front row behind the defense table, dressed conservatively and trying to look supportive. Our divorce was finalized 2 weeks ago, so she's no longer my problem. But seeing her still irritates me. The prosecutor is a young woman named Jessica Walsh, who looks like she could be Detective Marston's daughter. She's thorough, methodical, and completely unsympathetic to Calvin's situation. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, she begins in her opening statement, this case is about choices. The defendant, Calvin Reeves, made a series of criminal choices that brought us here today. She outlines the charges systematically. Theft of property worth more than $8,000, receiving stolen property, attempted fraud, filing off serial numbers, and witness intimidation. Each charge carries its own potential sentence, and together they add up to a possible 20 years in prison. Calvin's public defender, Jennifer Walsh, tries to paint him as a victim of circumstances, unemployed, desperate, led astray by his relationship with a married woman. It's not a terrible strategy, but it doesn't address the fundamental problem. Calvin committed multiple felonies. The trial lasts 3 days. I testify on the second day, walking the jury through the timeline of events from discovering my missing equipment to Calvin's arrest to his ill-advised visit to my house. Mr. Morrison, the prosecutor asks, did you give the defendant permission to take your equipment? No. Did your wife have authority to give such permission? No. The equipment belonged to me personally and to my business. My wife had no ownership interest in it. What was the total value of the stolen items? $8,400. And how did this theft affect your business? I had to cancel several shoots while waiting for insurance replacement. I lost approximately $3,000 in income. The defense attorney tries to suggest that this was all a misunderstanding, that Calvin believed he had permission to borrow the equipment, but the serial number filing undermines that argument completely. Mr. Morrison, she asked during cross-examination, is it possible that my client filed off the serial numbers to prevent the equipment from being stolen by someone else? No, that doesn't make any sense. Filing off serial numbers is what thieves do to prevent stolen goods from being traced back to their owners. But you can't know my client's intent. I know that honest people don't file serial numbers off other people's property. The jury deliberates for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Judge Coleman schedules sentencing for the following week. Calvin is led back to his holding cell and Angela rushes out of the courtroom without looking at me. The sentencing hearing is even more satisfying than the trial. Calvin's lawyer presents a series of character witnesses. His mother, his former boss from the gym, who carefully avoids mentioning the steroid dealing, and a high school friend who testifies about Calvin's potential for rehabilitation. The prosecutor presents a different picture. Calvin's pattern of illegal behavior, his lack of remorse, and the premeditated nature of his crimes. Your Honor, she concludes, the defendant didn't make one mistake. He made a series of calculated decisions designed to permanently deprive Mr. Morrison of his property. The serial number filing alone shows intent to commit a continuing crime. Judge Coleman listens to both sides, then addresses Calvin directly. Mr. Reeves, you are 30 years old. You are old enough to understand the difference between right and wrong, and you are old enough to face the consequences of your actions. The court sentences you to 5 years in state prison on the grand larceny charge, 2 years on the receiving stolen property charge, 1 year on the fraud charge, and 2 years on the witness intimidation charge. The sentences on the first 3 charges will run concurrently. The witness intimidation sentence will run consecutively. Calvin's face goes white. 7 years? 7 years, with the possibility of parole after serving 4 years. You are also ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $11,400 to cover Mr. Morrison's equipment and lost income. Calvin's mother starts sobbing. Angela looks like she's going to faint. Calvin himself just stares at the judge like he can't process what he's hearing. Furthermore, Judge Coleman continues, upon your release, you will serve 3 years of supervised probation. During that time, you are prohibited from contact with Mr. Morrison or any member of his family. The bailiff leads Calvin away in handcuffs. He doesn't look back at Angela or his mother. He doesn't look at me either, which is probably smart. Outside the courthouse, Angela catches up with me in the parking lot. Are you happy now? She demands. Getting there. 7 years, Eddie. 7 years of his life. He earned every day of it. This is all because you couldn't forgive me. This is because your boyfriend is a thief who made incredibly stupid decisions. Calvin's not a bad person. Angela, stop. Calvin is exactly the kind of person who steals from people and then acts surprised when there are consequences. You picked a loser, and now you get to live with that choice. What about me? What am I supposed to do now? You're supposed to get on with your life, get a job, find a place to live, maybe try dating someone who isn't a criminal. I loved him. Then you should have thought about that before you gave him my equipment to steal. I get in my car and drive away, leaving her standing in the courthouse parking lot for the second time in 3 months. That evening, I meet Ricky and several other photographer friends at Murphy's Tavern to celebrate. The story of Calvin's sentencing has already spread through the local photography community, and the general consensus is that justice was served. 7 years seems harsh, says Tom Bradley. 7 years seems appropriate, I counter. He stole $8,000 worth of equipment, filed off the serial numbers, threatened an old man, and then showed up at my house while facing felony charges. How is 7 years harsh? I guess when you put it that way. The guy was using Eddie's photos to advertise his own services, Sarah Martinez adds. That's copyright infringement on top of everything else. Could you have sued him for that? Ricky asks. Probably. But he's going to be in prison for the next 4 years, so there wouldn't be much point. We drink and talk until closing time. It feels good to have this chapter of my life definitively closed. The next morning, I wake up in my own house, in my own bed, with no one lying to me about where they're going or who they're seeing. I make coffee in my own kitchen and read the newspaper without worrying about what mood Angela is going to be in or what crisis Calvin has created. My phone rings around 9 o'clock. Detective Marston. Heard about the sentencing? How do you feel? Relieved. 7 years is a long time. 7 years is exactly what Calvin Reeves deserved. What about your equipment? I'll get it back when the appeals process is finished. Probably another 6 months. And if it's damaged, then Calvin owes me replacement value on top of the restitution he already owes, which he'll never be able to pay. That's not my problem. Detective Marston chuckles. You know, in 15 years of doing this job, I've never seen a victim handle a case quite like you did. How so? Most people want revenge, but they want someone else to get it for them. You got your own revenge, completely legally, and you made it stick. I just wanted Calvin to face the consequences of his actions. Well, he's definitely facing them now. After I hang up, I sit in my studio looking at my new equipment. Everything is exactly where it should be, organized the way I like it, ready for whatever project comes next. My calendar is full for the next 3 months. Word about my situation spread through the photography community, but instead of hurting my reputation, it seems to have enhanced it. Clients like working with someone who stands up for themselves. Angela has moved back in with her parents in Springfield. She got a job at an insurance company, and according to Maya, she's seeing a therapist and trying to put her life back together. I wish her well, but from a distance, Calvin is serving his sentence at MCI Shirley, a medium-security prison about an hour west of Boston. He won't be eligible for parole for 4 years, and even then he'll have to demonstrate genuine remorse and rehabilitation. I don't think about him very often anymore. When I do, it's with the satisfaction of knowing that justice was served completely and appropriately. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. I prefer it served hot, with witnesses and a court reporter taking down every word.